In 1922, the Soviet Union emerged from the chaos of the Russian Revolution. Led by the Bolsheviks under Vladimir Lenin, the USSR aimed to build a utopia based on Marxist ideals. It became a superpower, spanning 11 time zones, with a vast economy and one of the largest military forces in the world. Its rivalry with the United States during the Cold War defined much of the 20th century. But beneath the surface of power and propaganda, cracks were forming. By the 1970s, the USSR faced a series of internal and external challenges. The economy, heavily reliant on central planning, began stagnating. While the West embraced innovation and consumer culture, the Soviet system struggled to produce even basic goods for its people. Corruption was rampant, and dissent simmered below the surface, as citizens grew weary of the Communist Party's tight grip. Externally, the Soviet Union's empire was expensive to maintain. It funneled resources to support satellite states in Eastern Europe, fought a costly and unpopular war in Afghanistan, 1979 to 1989, and engaged in an arms race with the U.S. that drained its economy. In 1985, Mikhail Gorbachev became General Secretary of the Communist Party, inheriting an empire on the brink of collapse. Gorbachev introduced two groundbreaking policies: Glasnost, openness, and Perestroika, restructuring. Glasnost allowed unprecedented freedom of expression. People began openly criticizing the government, exposing corruption, and questioning the very foundations of the Soviet state. Perestroika aimed to modernize the economy by introducing market reforms. But these changes destabilized the system, leading to economic chaos and shortages. Gorbachev hoped these reforms would save the USSR. Instead, they unleashed forces he couldn't control. The dominoes began to fall in Eastern Europe. Poland held semi-free elections. Hungary opened its borders to the West. In Germany, the Berlin Wall, an iconic symbol of the Cold War, was torn down, reuniting East and West Germany. As Soviet control over Eastern Europe crumbled, the USSR's own republics took notice. Within the USSR, nationalist movements gained momentum. Ethnic minorities in the 15 Soviet republics demanded independence. In Lithuania, a human chain of protesters declared independence in 1990. Latvia and Estonia followed suit, refusing to bow to Moscow's authority. Gorbachev tried to hold the Union together by granting more autonomy, but it wasn't enough. In August 1991, hardline communists staged a coup to overthrow Gorbachev and reverse his reforms. Tanks rolled into Moscow, and Gorbachev was placed under house arrest. But the coup failed spectacularly. Boris Yeltsin, the president of the Russian Soviet Federative Socialist Republic, became the face of resistance. Standing atop a tank in front of Moscow's White House, he rallied the people and the military to oppose the plotters. The coup collapsed within days, leaving the hardliners discredited and Gorbachev politically weakened. With the central government paralyzed, republics moved to declare independence. Ukraine's decision in December 1991 was the tipping point. Its departure made the Union unviable. On December 25, 1991, Gorbachev resigned, and the Soviet flag was lowered from the Kremlin for the last time. The USSR officially ceased to exist the next day, replaced by 15 independent countries, with Russia as the largest successor state. Now the question is, why did the USSR collapse? 1. Economic stagnation. The planned economy couldn't compete with market economies. 2. Nationalism. Decades of ethnic and cultural repression fueled separatist movements. 3. Ideological failure. Communism couldn't deliver on its promises, leading to widespread disillusionment. 4. Gorbachev's reforms, Glasnost and Perestroika, destabilized an already fragile system. 5. Cold War pressures. The arms race and foreign interventions drained resources. Legacy. The collapse of the USSR marked the end of the Cold War, a victory for democracy and capitalism in the eyes of the West. But for many in the former Soviet Union, it was a time of economic hardship and loss of global status. To this day, debates continue about whether the USSR could have been saved or if its collapse was inevitable. The story of the Soviet Union's fall is a cautionary tale about the fragility of empires and the power of people to demand change.